The Sabbath doesn't just measure your obedience, it reveals who you really are. Ellen White wrote that the way you keep the Sabbath exposes the true condition of your heart before God. Most people think it's about resting from work, but she warned it's actually a divine mirror, reflecting loyalty, reverence, and spiritual identity. You can keep the day and still miss the one who gave it. Because the Sabbath was never meant to be a rule you follow, it was designed to reveal the character you're becoming. The Sabbath doesn't just measure your obedience, it reveals who you really are. Ellen White understood something most believers still miss today. She saw the Sabbath not as a simple day of rest, but as a divine instrument designed by God to expose the deepest layers of your heart. The way you approach this holy day, the attitude you carry into it, the reverence you show, or the indifference you hide, all of it becomes visible before heaven. This isn't about legalism. This isn't about earning salvation through rigid observance. This is about something far more profound. The Sabbath was given as a mirror, and what it reflects back to you is the true condition of your soul. If this message is speaking to your heart right now, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming. And if you believe this truth needs to reach more people, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this message travel further than we could ever imagine. I also want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what does the Sabbath reveal about your relationship with God? Your answer might encourage someone else who's walking the same journey. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. You need to stay until the end, because what you'll discover may change the way you see your spiritual life. This isn't just theology. This is about identity. It's about loyalty. It's about whether your obedience flows from love or from duty. And Ellen White had urgent warnings about the difference. Most people think keeping the Sabbath means stopping work, attending church, and avoiding certain activities. And yes, those things matter. But Ellen White taught that you can do all of that and still dishonor the Sabbath. You can rest your body while your heart remains distant. You can attend services while your mind wanders. You can follow the rules while missing the relationship. Because the Sabbath wasn't designed to test your discipline. It was designed to reveal your devotion. Picture this moment. God sets aside one day out of 7, marks it as holy, and invites you into his presence. He doesn't ask for your perfection, he asks for your heart. He doesn't demand flawless performance. He desires genuine connection. And the way you respond to that invitation tells the story of who you really are before him. That's what Ellen White saw. That's what she warned about. And that's what we're going to uncover together. This is not a message about condemnation. This is a message about revelation. It's about understanding that the Sabbath is one of God's greatest gifts, not just for rest, but for transformation. So let's walk through this together step by step and discover what the Sabbath is revealing about you right now. Ellen White wrote that the Sabbath is the sign between God and his people. But here's what most believers don't realize. A sign isn't just a marker, it's a revealer. It doesn't just point to something external, it exposes something internal. The Sabbath reveals whether your loyalty to God is real or merely religious. It shows whether your obedience flows from love or from obligation. And that distinction matters more than you might think. Loyalty is invisible until it's tested. You can claim allegiance to God in your words, in your prayers, in your theology. But the Sabbath is where that allegiance becomes visible. Because when the world demands your time, your energy, your participation on the seventh day, what do you choose? When convenience conflicts with commandment, where does your heart turn? Ellen White understood that the Sabbath functions as a spiritual litmus test. It doesn't create loyalty, it reveals it. And what it reveals about you is being recorded in heaven right now. Think about this carefully. God could have chosen any sign to mark his people. He could have required a physical mark, a specific garment, a public declaration. But he chose time. He chose a day. He chose something that requires you to stop, to surrender control, to trust him with what you believe you need to accomplish. That choice wasn't random. It was intentional. Because time is one of the hardest things for human beings to surrender. And the Sabbath asks you to give it back to God every single week. Ellen White warned that many people keep the Sabbath externally while their hearts remain far from God. They rest their bodies, but not their souls. They attend worship, but their minds chase after the week's worries or the coming Monday's demands. They observe the form, but miss the relationship. And God sees it all. He sees the difference between someone who honors the day because they love the lawgiver and someone who keeps the rules to avoid guilt or judgment. That difference is everything. Here's what you need to understand. Loyalty isn't proven in the easy moments. It's proven when staying faithful costs you something. When keeping the Sabbath means losing an opportunity, missing a social event, facing misunderstanding from friends or family, that's when your true allegiance is revealed. That's when the Sabbath stops being a routine and becomes a testimony. Ellen White saw this clearly. She knew that in the final crisis of Earth's history, Sabbath observance would become the visible line between those who worship the Creator and those who bow to human authority. But even now, before that final test arrives, the Sabbath is revealing where you stand. It's showing whether you trust God enough to rest when everything in you wants to keep working. It's exposing whether you believe His blessing on the seventh day is greater than what you could accomplish on your own. And it's demonstrating to the universe whether your faith is rooted in relationship or merely in religion. So ask yourself right now, what is the Sabbath revealing about your loyalty to God? There's a form of obedience that looks perfect on the outside, but is hollow within. Ellen White called it compliance without conversion. It's the kind of obedience that follows the letter of the law while ignoring the spirit behind it. And when it comes to the Sabbath, this kind of obedience is especially dangerous because it deceives the one practicing it. You can convince yourself you're honoring God while your heart remains cold, distant, unchanged. True Sabbath observance begins in the heart long before it shows up in your actions. It starts with love for the one who gave the commandment. It flows from gratitude for the gift of rest. It's motivated by a desire to spend time in God's presence, not by fear of breaking a rule. Ellen White emphasized this again and again. She warned that Sabbath keeping without heart transformation becomes nothing more than empty ritual. And God isn't interested in rituals. He's interested in relationship. Picture this: two people attend the same Sabbath service. They both refrain from work. They both follow the same external guidelines. But one person's heart is filled with joy because they see the Sabbath as sacred time with their Creator. The other person's heart is filled with duty because they see the Sabbath as a religious obligation they must fulfill. God sees both, and He knows the difference, because obedience that doesn't flow from love is not the obedience He desires. Ellen White taught that the Sabbath is meant to be a delight, not a burden. When you approach it with the right heart, it becomes a refuge. It becomes a weekly reminder that you are loved, that you are chosen, that you belong to God. But when you approach it with a heart focused only on rules and restrictions, it becomes heavy. It becomes something to endure rather than something to enjoy. And that reveals a deeper problem. It reveals that you don't yet understand the character of the God who gave you the Sabbath. Here's the truth that changes everything. God didn't give you the Sabbath to control you. He gave it to connect with you. He didn't create it as a test of your willpower. He created it as an opportunity for intimacy. And when you begin to see it that way, Your obedience transforms. It stops being about what you can't do and becomes about what you get to experience. It stops being a checklist and becomes a love letter written in time. But if your Sabbath observance feels mechanical, joyless, or burdensome, that's a sign. It's a sign that something needs to change, not in your actions, but in your heart. Ellen White would tell you to go back to the foundation. Go back to why God established the Sabbath in the first place. Go back to the relationship He's inviting you into. Because obedience that flows from the heart is the only obedience that truly honors Him. And the Sabbath is showing you right now whether that's the kind of obedience you're offering. Sanctification isn't an event, it's a process. And Ellen White taught that the Sabbath plays a vital role in that process. Every week, when you set aside the seventh day, you're participating in something far greater than rest. You're allowing God to shape your character. You're creating space for Him to refine your heart. You're stepping into a rhythm designed to transform you from the inside out. The Sabbath forces you to stop. And in a world that never stops, that act alone is transformative. It teaches you that your worth isn't tied to your productivity. It reminds you that God's work in your life doesn't depend on your constant effort. It shows you that rest isn't weakness, it's faith. Faith that God is in control. Faith that He will provide. Faith that you can trust Him with the things you're setting down for 24 hours. Ellen White observed that many believers struggle with sanctification because they never truly rest. They carry their burdens into the Sabbath. They replay their failures, rehearse their anxieties, plan their next moves. And in doing so, they miss the very thing the Sabbath was designed to give them: peace in God's presence. Sanctification requires surrender. And the Sabbath is God's weekly invitation to practice that surrender. Think about what happens when you consistently honor the Sabbath with the right heart. Week after week, you're reminded that God is holy. You're reminded that you need Him. You're reminded that spiritual growth doesn't happen through human striving, but through divine grace. That pattern, repeated over time, changes you. It shapes the way you think. It softens the way you respond. It deepens your dependence on God. That's sanctification in action. But here's what Ellen White warned about. If you treat the Sabbath as nothing more than a day off, you're missing the sanctifying power it carries. If you fill it with distractions, entertainment, or self-focused activities, you're robbing yourself of what God intended to give you. The Sabbath isn't just a pause from work. It's a portal into God's presence. And it's in His presence that you are transformed. So ask yourself, is the Sabbath making you more like Christ? Is it softening your heart, increasing your faith, deepening your love for God and others? Or has it become just another routine, another box to check, another religious duty? Because the Sabbath was designed to sanctify you, it was meant to be one of the primary tools God uses to shape your character. And if it's not doing that in your life, something needs to change. The Sabbath is revealing whether you're allowing God to do His transforming work in you. You can keep the Sabbath day and still dishonor the Sabbath's God. Ellen White made this distinction clear, and it's one of the most important truths you need to understand. The Sabbath isn't ultimately about the day itself. It's about the one who made the day holy. And when your focus shifts from relationship to ritual, you've lost the heart of what the Sabbath is meant to be. Many believers fall into this trap without realizing it. They become meticulous about what they will and won't do on the Sabbath. They create lists, draw boundaries, measure their observance by external standards. And while those things aren't necessarily wrong, they become dangerous when they replace the relationship. Because God didn't give you the Sabbath so you could prove how well you follow rules. He gave it so you could know Him more deeply. Ellen White warned that the Pharisees made this exact mistake. They turned the Sabbath into a burden by adding layer after layer of human tradition. They focused so much on what was forbidden that they forgot what was intended. And Jesus came and shattered their framework. He healed on the Sabbath. He walked through grain fields on the Sabbath. He reminded them that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. He was teaching them to honor the giver, not just the gift. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. When you think about the Sabbath, what comes to mind first? Do you think about restrictions and rules? Or do you think about the God who loves you enough to invite you into his rest? Do you focus on what you're giving up? Or do you focus on what you're receiving? Your answer reveals whether you're honoring the day or honoring the one who sanctified it. Honoring God through the Sabbath means entering it with gratitude. It means recognizing that this day is a gift, not a burden. It means using the time to draw closer to him, to worship him, to reflect on his goodness, to rest in his provision. It means treating the Sabbath as sacred not because of legalism, but because of love. When you approach it that way, everything changes. The day stops being about obligation and becomes about opportunity. But if your Sabbath observance has become cold, mechanical, or joyless, Ellen White would urge you to return to the heart of the matter. Go back to the relationship. Go back to the God who created the Sabbath for your benefit, for your blessing, for your transformation. Because keeping the day without honoring the one who gave it is like receiving a love letter and only analyzing the handwriting. You've missed the entire point. And the Sabbath is revealing right now whether you're truly honoring the doer or just observing the day. What you do with your time reveals what you truly value. Ellen White understood this principle deeply, and she applied it directly to Sabbath observance. The way you spend the Sabbath exposes your real priorities, even the ones you don't want to admit. It shows whether God holds the highest place in your life or whether he's been pushed to the margins by things that feel more urgent, more exciting, or more comfortable. The Sabbath asks you to set aside everything else and make God your focus. That's not easy in a world that constantly demands your attention. Work calls, responsibilities pile up, entertainment tempts, social obligations pull. And in the middle of all that noise, the Sabbath stands as a quiet invitation. Choose me. Spend this time with me. Let everything else wait. And your response to that invitation reveals where God ranks in your list of priorities. Ellen White observed that many believers claim to love God, but their Sabbath habits tell a different story. They rush through worship so they can get to other activities. They fill the day with things that aren't sinful, but aren't sacred either. They treat the Sabbath like a day off instead of a day set apart. And all of that reveals something uncomfortable. It reveals that God isn't actually their first priority. He's just one priority among many. Here's what you need to face honestly. If you were to examine how you spend your Sabbath hours, what would that reveal about your heart? Would it show a deep desire to connect with God? Or would it show that you're more interested in rest, entertainment, or personal pursuits? Would it demonstrate reverence and intentionality? Or would it reveal carelessness and distraction? This isn't about judgment, this is about truth. And the Sabbath has a way of bringing truth to the surface. Ellen White taught that the Sabbath is a test of allegiance, not in a harsh, legalistic sense, but in a revealing, illuminating sense. It shows who and what you're truly devoted to, because it's easy to say you love God when it doesn't cost you anything. But when keeping the Sabbath means saying no to something you want, something that benefits you, something the world says is perfectly fine, that's when your true priorities are exposed. So ask yourself this question and answer it honestly. If someone were to watch how you spend your Sabbath, would they see a person whose greatest priority is knowing God? Or would they see someone who fits God into the leftover spaces of their day? The Sabbath doesn't lie, it reveals. And what it's revealing about your priorities right now is a message you need to hear. Because if God isn't first in your Sabbath, He's not first in your life. And that's something worth confronting. The Sabbath is holy because God made it holy, not because of anything you do, not because of religious tradition, not because of human effort. God Himself sanctified the seventh day at creation, and that sanctification still stands. Ellen White emphasized this truth repeatedly. The Sabbath carries the presence of God in a unique way, and approaching it requires reverence, humility, and a heart prepared to encounter the sacred. Reverence is a lost concept in much of modern Christianity. We've become casual with God. We've reduced worship to entertainment. We've turned sacred spaces into social gatherings. And while there's nothing wrong with joy and community, Ellen White warned that we must never lose sight of who God is. He is holy. He is awesome. He is the creator of the universe. And the Sabbath is a weekly reminder of His majesty and our need to approach Him with reverence. Picture this. Moses stood before the burning bush, and God told him to take off his sandals because he was standing on holy ground. The ground wasn't holy because of its physical properties. It was holy because God was present there. The same principle applies to the Sabbath. The day itself is ordinary time, but God's presence sanctifies it. And when you enter the Sabbath, you're stepping onto holy ground. The question is, do you recognize that? Ellen White observed that many believers treat the Sabbath with carelessness. They approach it the same way they approach any other day. They speak the same careless words, entertain the same wandering thoughts, engage in the same trivial pursuits. And in doing so, they dishonor the holiness of the day. Not because God is harsh or unforgiving, but because they're missing the very thing the Sabbath was designed to give them, an encounter with the sacred. Reverence doesn't mean joylessness. It doesn't mean walking on eggshells or suppressing all emotion. It means recognizing who God is and responding appropriately. It means preparing your heart before the Sabbath begins. It means guarding your words, your thoughts, your actions throughout the day. It means treating the Sabbath as set apart, as different, as holy, because it is. And when you approach it with that kind of reverence, you open yourself to experience God's presence in ways you never could otherwise. But if you've been treating the Sabbath casually, if you've lost the sense of awe and reverence it's meant to inspire, Ellen White would urge you to stop and recalibrate. Go back to the foundation. Remember that this day is holy. Remember that God is present in it. And let that truth change the way you enter it, the way you spend it, the way you honor it, because the Sabbath is revealing whether you still recognize the holiness of God. And that recognition is central to everything else in your spiritual life. Rest is not passive. Rest is faith in action. Ellen White taught that when you truly rest on the Sabbath, you're making a statement of trust. You're declaring that God is capable of handling what you're setting down. You're acknowledging that your worth doesn't come from your productivity. You're confessing that you need Him more than you need to keep striving. And in a culture that worships busyness, that act of rest becomes radically countercultural. The world tells you that your value is tied to your output. It measures your success by how much you accomplish, how much you achieve, how much you produce. And the pressure to keep going, to keep working, to keep proving yourself is relentless. The Sabbath stands in direct opposition to that lie. It tells you that you are valuable not because of what you do, but because of whose you are. And when you rest, you're agreeing with God's assessment of your worth. Ellen White understood that many believers struggle to rest because they don't truly trust God. They fear that if they stop working, something will fall apart. They worry that they'll fall behind, miss an opportunity, lose ground. And so they carry their work into the Sabbath, either physically or mentally. They rest their bodies, but not their souls. And in doing so, they reveal a deeper issue. They reveal that their faith in God's provision is incomplete. Here's the truth you need to embrace. God didn't give you the Sabbath to test your willpower. He gave it to teach you faith. When you rest on the seventh day, you're practicing trust. You're learning to let go of control. You're allowing God to demonstrate that He is faithful, that He will provide, that He doesn't need your constant effort to accomplish his purposes. That lesson is one of the most important lessons you'll ever learn. Ellen White also warned that rest without faith is just laziness. True Sabbath rest is intentional, it's purposeful, it's rooted in a conscious decision to trust God with what you're setting down. It's not about escaping responsibility, it's about surrendering control. And that surrender is an act of worship. It's a way of saying to God, I believe you are who you say you are. I trust you to take care of what I cannot. I rest in your sufficiency. But if you find it difficult to truly rest on the Sabbath, if your mind races with anxiety or your heart feels restless, that's revealing something. It's revealing that there's still an area of your life where you haven't fully trusted God. And the Sabbath is inviting you to bring that area to Him, to lay it down, to let Him carry it, because rest is faith. And the Sabbath is showing you right now whether your faith is strong enough to let go and trust Him completely. Your identity isn't shaped by what you do. It's shaped by whose you are. And the Sabbath is one of the primary ways God reminds you of your true identity. Ellen White taught that the Sabbath is a sign between God and His people. It marks you as belonging to Him. It identifies you as part of His covenant community. It declares to the universe that you are His child, chosen, loved, and set apart for His purposes. In a world that constantly tries to define you by your achievements, your appearance, your status, or your possessions, the Sabbath offers a different narrative. It tells you that your identity is rooted in something far more secure. You are a child of the Creator. You are loved by the God who spoke the universe into existence. You are part of a story that began before time and will continue into eternity. And the Sabbath is a weekly reminder of that unchanging truth. Ellen White observed that many believers live with insecurity because they've built their identity on unstable foundations. They derive their sense of worth from things that can be taken away, things that shift and change, things that ultimately fail. But the Sabbath calls you back to the one identity that cannot be shaken. You belong to God, and nothing in this world can change that. Picture this. Every week when the Sabbath arrives, God is inviting you to step out of the chaos and confusion of the world's identity markers and step into the truth of who you are in Him. You're not defined by your job title. You're not defined by your successes or failures. You're not defined by what others think of you. You are defined by the fact that the God of the universe calls you His own. And the Sabbath is the day He set aside to remind you of that reality. But here's what happens when you neglect the Sabbath or treat it carelessly. You lose touch with that identity. You start to drift back into the world's way of defining worth. You begin to measure yourself by the wrong standards. You forget who you are and whose you are. And that forgetfulness leads to anxiety, insecurity, striving, and exhaustion. Ellen White saw this pattern clearly. She knew that Sabbath observance wasn't just about obedience, it was about identity preservation. So ask yourself, does the Sabbath remind you of your true identity? Does it anchor you in the truth of God's love and your belonging to Him? Or has it become so routine, so empty, so disconnected from its purpose that it no longer serves that function? Because the Sabbath is meant to be a weekly reset for your soul. It's meant to remind you who you are. And if it's not doing that, you're missing one of its most precious gifts. The Sabbath is revealing whether your identity is rooted in God or in something far less secure. It's possible to keep the Sabbath perfectly and still be far from God. Ellen White warned about this. A danger repeatedly. She saw it in her own time, and the danger is even greater today. You can follow every rule, avoid every prohibited activity, attend every service, and still miss the entire point. Because the Sabbath without relationship is just religion, and religion without relationship is empty. The Pharisees kept the Sabbath meticulously. They had detailed laws about what could and couldn't be done. They measured distances, counted steps, debated definitions. But Jesus looked at them and saw hearts that were cold, proud, and far from God. They had the form of godliness, but denied its power. They honored God with their lips, but their hearts were far from Him. And Ellen White made it clear that the same danger exists for believers today. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can build your entire spiritual life around Sabbath observance and still not know God. You can take pride in your faithfulness to the day while remaining a stranger to the God who gave it. Machine, you can judge others for how they keep the Sabbath while your own heart is filled with pride, bitterness, or indifference. And all of that reveals that you've turned the Sabbath into an idol. You're worshipping the day instead of the one who sanctified it. Ellen White taught that the Sabbath is meant to draw you into relationship with God. It's meant to create space for intimacy, for conversation, for worship, for love. It's not meant to be a badge of religious superiority. It's not meant to be a measuring stick for judging others. It's not meant to be a source of pride. When the Sabbath becomes any of those things, it has been distorted from its original purpose. Think about your own experience. When you keep the Sabbath, are you genuinely seeking God? Are you using the day to grow closer to Him, to know Him more deeply, to experience His presence more fully? Or are you just going through the motions, checking off requirements, maintaining appearances? Because God isn't fooled by external observance. He sees the heart, and He's far more interested in relationship than ritual. If you've been keeping the Sabbath out of duty rather than devotion, Ellen White would urge you to stop and examine your heart. Don't settle for religion. Don't accept a form of godliness that has no power to transform you. Pursue the relationship the Sabbath was designed to facilitate, because the Sabbath without relationship is ultimately meaningless. And what it's revealing right now is whether you're truly connected to God or just performing religious activities. That distinction could determine your eternal destiny. The Sabbath you keep here is a rehearsal for the Sabbath you'll experience in eternity. Ellen White taught this profound truth, and it changes everything. The weekly Sabbath isn't just about the present, it's about the future. It's about preparing your heart for the eternal rest that awaits God's people. And the way you approach the Sabbath now reveals whether you're truly ready for what's coming. In eternity, there will be no more struggle, no more striving, no more work. There will be unbroken fellowship with God, perfect rest, perfect peace, perfect joy. And the Sabbath is God's way of giving you a taste of that reality every single week. It's a preview, a promise, a reminder that this world is not your home and that something far better is waiting. Ellen White observed that many believers live as though this world is all there is. They invest everything in temporary things. They pursue comfort, success, pleasure, security in this life. And the Sabbath stands as a weekly corrective to that mindset. It reminds you that you're a pilgrim, a stranger, a sojourner passing through. It calls you to set your affections on things above, not on things of this earth. And it prepares your heart to long for the eternal Sabbath rest that is coming. But here's the warning Ellen White gave. If you don't learn to delight in the Sabbath now, you won't be prepared for eternity. If the thought of spending uninterrupted time in God's presence feels boring or burdensome to you, that's a sign. It's a sign that your heart hasn't been transformed by grace. It's a sign that you're still more attached to this world than to the next. And it's a sign that you need to allow God to change your desires. Heaven will be filled with those who love God, who delight in His presence, who find their greatest joy in worship and communion with Him. And the Sabbath is where that love is cultivated. Week by week, as you choose to set aside the distractions of this world and focus on God, you're training your heart for eternity. You're learning to love what you'll be doing forever. You're preparing your soul for the reality that awaits. So ask yourself honestly, does the Sabbath fill you with joy or with obligation? Do you look forward to it or endure it? Do you see it as a gift or as a burden? Because your answer reveals something critical. It reveals whether you're ready for eternity. The Sabbath is not just about this life. It's about the life to come. And what it's revealing about you right now is whether your heart is truly prepared for the eternal rest God has promised. That's not a small thing. That's everything. The Sabbath reveals who you truly are, not who you pretend to be, not who you wish you were, but who you actually are in the hidden places of your heart. Ellen White understood this with crystal clarity. She knew that the Sabbath functions as a mirror, reflecting back to you the true condition of your soul. And what that mirror shows is being recorded in heaven. This isn't about condemnation. This is about revelation. God isn't trying to catch you failing. He's trying to show you where you need His grace. The Sabbath exposes your loyalties, your priorities, your faith, your reverence, your identity, and your readiness for eternity. And all of that exposure is meant for your good. It's meant to help you see where you're growing and where you're still resistant. It's meant to guide you into deeper relationship with the God who loves you. If the Sabbath has revealed areas where you're falling short, don't run from that truth. Embrace it. Bring it to God. Confess your need for transformation. Ask Him to change your heart, to deepen your love, to increase your faith. Because He is faithful, He will complete the work He's begun in you. But you have to be willing to face what the Sabbath is revealing. Ellen White would tell you that there's still time to realign your heart, time to return to the God who created the Sabbath for your blessing, time to allow the Sabbath to do in you what it was designed to do, but that time won't last forever. The final crisis is coming. The day is approaching when Sabbath observance will become the ultimate test of allegiance, and the heart you're cultivating now through your weekly response to the Sabbath is the heart you'll carry into that test. So choose wisely, choose intentionally. Let the Sabbath reveal the truth about who you are, and then let God transform what needs to be changed. Because the Sabbath isn't just a commandment, it's an invitation into rest, into relationship, into transformation, and ultimately into eternity with the God who loves you beyond measure. If this message has stirred something in your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel so you can continue growing in truth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment below telling me, what has the Sabbath revealed to you today? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thank you for staying until the end. May God bless you as you honor Him in the Sabbath and in every area of your life.